Welcome to Sunrunner. I'm TC, and in 2020, I bought my bike, affectionately named Thundercat, to take a trip to Glacier National Park with some friends. I never figured out how to stop after that, and since then I've covered more than 30,000 miles on two wheels. I figured now is as good a time as any to start telling you the stories. This time, we're going to Washington. We're following Highway 101 all the way up the coast to Olympic National Forest. Joining me this time would be my good buddy Jason. I've taken almost all my long rides with him.
I don't even know where we are.
We've seen a lot of road together, and he was on his way over. We could start our trip north. Day one would land us in San Francisco, where some friends would put us up for the night. Despite YouTube time, packing took me an entire day. It can be challenging on a motorcycle. You never know what you're going to need, and the weather changes constantly. But we'll get into that another time. For now, let's get on the road. Our destination was a little more than 400 miles, which is a bit longer than I usually like to be in the saddle for, but some days on the road are worth more than others.
Hi, Jason.
I said goodbye to home and headed for the highway. The weather up the coast was beautiful, and it held up until we had to make our first stop. The first 100 miles always goes quickly, which is also the perfect time to stop for gas. So we had a stretch and talked about our route.
The 5. Yeah. So glad we're on 101 right now.
Yeah, let's try this place. It's kind of like a little diner.
It's great.
We found a little diner up the road in Buellton called Ellen's, one of probably hundreds of diners we've been to on the road. This one, pretty good. While Jason practiced reading, I ordered some food. We probably wouldn't eat again until dinner. Our next stop brought us to San Ardo, California, which, believe me, was out of necessity. The 101 dips inland around Central Valley, and the temperature goes up with it. It was almost 95 degrees by the time we got there. A stark difference from the weather on the coast. Gas was over $6 a gallon, but I suppose we were lucky these pumps worked at all.
I called that right for $6.40 a gallon.
I found the little bit of shade that was available and got to break out my camera for the first time this trip. For any of you other nerds out there like me wondering, I'm shooting analog, and I have Cinestill 400D loaded up. Anyway, we left after a short respite and pushed on towards somewhere I actually wanted to go. I bought this motorcycle in this little town in 2020, but that wasn't why I wanted to come back here. Gilroy is the garlic capital of the world. Self-proclaimed maybe, but they have something I haven't seen anywhere else. Garlic ice cream. I wasted my opportunity last time I was here to try it. I wasn't going to let that happen again.
That's not it. It's pretty gross. Why are you still eating it?
We took a moment to rest and get over our disappointment before getting back on the road. It had been a long, hot day already, but we only had a little over 100 miles to go. So we opened the throttle and powered through what was arguably the most boring part of the 101 until we hit the bay. We'd made it to the Golden Gate Bridge. I was glad we got to start the ride with such a beautiful landmark. It's seeing things like this that really keep your spirits up after long days on the bike. We'd done our miles for the day, and we made it somewhere I knew we'd be treated like family. Just kidding. I got iced before I could even unpack. But I was among friends, even if their choice of alcohol was questionable.
Do you want to back this up? A little too. We can push this towards Jason.
Reminds me of my dad.
In eternal hellfire. Nice.
This was his funeral.
We had the next day off, so we took the morning to recoup and reorganize.
Yo estoy feliz que este
Matt took us to breakfast, where I had the biggest horchata of my life.
It was a big ass horchata.
After breakfast, we headed to Matt's garage for a little tune-up before heading further north. The backrest on Cat had come loose, and I needed to rebore some threads before it would sit right. I didn't even know Matt had a job, and it turns out he's a master mechanic. It is just like him, though, to spend his days off helping his friends. So, he fixed me up, and we were ready for the next day of travel. It was a dreary day leaving the bay, but this was the first trip that we'd taken where we didn't have to cross the Mojave up front to get out. After so many 100+ degree days, this has become my favorite weather to ride in. We needed gas before we hit the highway. We decided to get some miles behind us before we ate. Spirits are always higher if you can get somewhere before breakfast. We found a little diner called Bluebird Cafe in a little town called Hopland about 70 miles up the highway. I really liked this place. The staff was friendly and the food was really good. I probably could have sat there a while longer and just listened to people talk, but we still had a long way to go. It was a pleasant day, and the road was wide open. When you know you still have a long way to go, it's highway like this that makes it easier. Another 100 miles up the road and it was time for gas again. The landscape has changed and the forest has taken over, letting me know that we were officially in Northern California. Back at the last filling station, Jason had let me know that we'd be riding parallel to a road called Avenue of the Giants, famed for 31 miles of redwood trees. When you pass something like this, you really have to make the effort. Otherwise, the country just kind of passes you by. The camera really doesn't do it justice. It was an amazing ride. I think from here to the redwoods is really more of a visual tour. I'll let it speak for itself. We'd made it to the redwoods, and would finally be able to break out the camping gear we'd been hauling.
How you doing? Good. We had a campsite. Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it. Thanks a lot, man.
Coming.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Are you on the path to like Hessian mode or what?
Yeah.
My partner, Sarah, had flown into the regional airport the night before and drove in with a good friend of ours, Matthew. We wasted no time setting up camp so we could relax.
Special tomato.
You got it from the
4 hours later.
Waking up has never been easy for me, but waking up in a tent takes the edge off a little bit.
Yeah, let's eat that one.
We had another day off to rest and explore, and I knew the redwoods would be worth it. We took the morning nice and slow and had coffee and breakfast before we'd head out. I really didn't know what direction we were headed, but it didn't matter. It was a beautiful day, and I was with good people.
Are you supposed to make out with them or something?
I had promised Sarah a ride through the redwoods, and the light was just getting good. So we geared up and headed north. Back at camp, it would be another chill night. We had another 300 miles to go in the morning, so we took it easy. It was a calm and cold morning as we packed up. Today we would finally break ground into Oregon, although it would be a longer day than I had thought. We said our goodbyes and went in opposite directions. We made our first stop in this little town because my ass was getting sore. I didn't realize the speed limit in Oregon maxes out at 55, and everyone here goes 40. So after 90 minutes on the road, we made it maybe 60 miles. It was going to be a long day. We made a stop for gas and for lunch. Sarah had sent us off with some camp rations that I was glad to have at this point. Stopping at a diner for food can take more than an hour, and at this point we really just wanted to get where we were going. One more long stretch and we'd be at our destination. You wouldn't be able to tell at this point, but my patience was wearing very thin. With the aforementioned speed limit and the road turning into a 2-lane highway permanently up the coast, it was taking forever to get anywhere. I think the only thing that saved Oregon, in my opinion, was its natural beauty. And it was beautiful. We'd finally made it. After a much longer day than it should have been, we arrived at the Tillamook Creamery. We celebrated with a well-deserved beer and some of the best commercial dairy offerings in the United States. And to all my fellow Midwesterners, the ranch was awesome. Well, it was time to check into our accommodations for the night. So we headed just a little farther up the road to the RV park where we'd be staying. Sometimes when you get into the wilds of the United States, these are the best and simplest options. Our housing for the night would be a yurt. More of a glamping experience, really. But it does save you the expense of unpacking every single piece of gear you have for one night. Well, beer.
Let's do it quick before I lose all steam.
Yeah. We had to pick Jason up some snacks. I think he likes the salmon. After our supply run, it was time to settle in and relax for the night. We followed standard operating procedure for the night. We built a fire and stared at it until bed. But after a long day, I wouldn't have rather done anything else. Day 6. We got up a little earlier today since we knew the rest of Oregon would take longer than expected. We packed up unceremoniously. Unsure of what was on the road ahead of us, we did the only logical thing and went back to the creamery for breakfast. The line for ice cream was empty, so we seized the opportunity and got breakfast milkshakes, something that would become kind of a theme on this trip. After a nutritious meal, we hit the road. Today, we would reach our destination, a little cabin in the woods outside of Forks, Washington, inside of Olympic National Park. This day was much like the last. As beautiful as the Pacific coast is, it started to feel like work. We took a short break and pressed on. Up the road, we'd be further impeded by construction. This actually happened a few times on this day. While I was happy to get off the bike for a minute and stretch, it probably added another 2 hours to our day. I don't remember how long we were sitting here, but it was long enough to back traffic up for this cool photo. Somewhere in here we crossed the bridge into Washington State. I wouldn't normally have included footage of us riding through some little town in Washington, except this little town might be worth mentioning. We were in Aberdeen, birthplace of Kurt Cobain. Now, I won't sit here and pretend to be some Nirvana superfan, but they certainly had an effect on my adolescence. I put them in my headphones as we rode through town. It had only been 6 days on the road, but the journey had felt much longer. This was the last stretch before reaching our destination. We had traversed the entire state of California from bottom to top. I had checked Oregon off my shrinking list of states to ride through, and I was returning somewhere that I've been thinking about ever since I came here the first time. Olympic National Park and the rainforest. It can be bittersweet going somewhere that feels like home. Knowing I was almost there meant I was also closer to leaving. And this part of the world is somewhere I felt like I could stay forever. We were just a few miles away now.
Made it. Huckleberry Cabin. Let's go, baby. Oh, dude. The fire pit out there is propane.
After settling in, we reluctantly went back up the road for food and supplies. Everything in this area closes pretty early, so we had to make the run while we had time. For anyone who's a fan of the Twilight movies, this is the area where they filmed them, and this place was really milking it. Doesn't explain the overpriced fish sticks, though.
2 in a day. You think you really need the calories?
I need to survive the night.
After grabbing the essentials, we returned to the cabin, only to find that my mounting hardware in my saddlebag had snapped. That bolt has seen a lot of bumps in the road, but fortunately I was prepared to fix it, so I busted out the tool roll and a beer and got to work. While I worked, Jason offered his support.
I've mounted many things in my life, and I've always done it better than you.
Imagine if you had goggles that would only let you see the bugs.
I would not. I would kill myself.
Yeah.
It may not look like much, but there's nowhere else I would have rather been. After a restful night, it was time to get the day started. There was a lot to explore. But first, breakfast.
Taking out one of my pots because I forgot my camp mug.
Yeah, and I'm sure that these supplied coffee.
Oh, fuck.
What you got in there, dude? Whiskey?
I don't want to hear any shit. This stuff hits when you're on the road. Today we would head to Rialto Beach, one of my favorite places in the world. But supplies were needed first, so we stopped at the vampire store again to stock up.
Good snag.
Yeah.
Dude, it's way busier than it was when I was here.
Really?
Well, it was raining.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Rialto is a spiritual home for me. The weather reminds me of where I grew up, something I don't get to see often in Southern California. We found a spot to be, and I did my best to grow roots. I'd shot the last of my roll of Cinestill and was ready for something new. This time, Pt.1. I don't know how much time passed while we were here, and it didn't matter. Although I could have set up camp on the beach, we still needed to eat dinner. So we headed into the small coastal community of La Push to eat at the only sit-down place they have, River's Edge. While we waited, Jason wondered about the decisions that had led him here and cried a little. Local beer and lobster were on the menu tonight, and what better place to enjoy them.
It's probably a more elegant way.
Maybe I was just hungry, but I had forgotten that you don't need to eat lobster with your hands. Either way, I'd like to thank this little bug. After dinner, I wasted the last few shots of Fuji I had left, and we called it a day. We had one day left to explore the area, which was perfect because by the end of the day we would have exhausted much of what there was to do. We headed into the closest real town called Forks for breakfast and sundries. Pizza wasn't high on my list for breakfast, but it was close and it was easy.
Great.
I was actually pleasantly surprised at how good it was. Oh, and the ranch was great too. I always write to Sarah when I'm on the road, so I made a stop at the post office to drop off a card in the mail. Jason took the opportunity to shop for something special for his girlfriend too.
I'm gonna pop over to that Twilight store over there and get Monica something.
Like Twilight?
No.
We had the afternoon to kill, so we went down to First Beach, one of 3 beaches up the local coast. We took in some of the local art and people watched for a few hours. It was our last night here, so we did what we do best. Took it easy.
You ever wonder about what part of the horse this meat is from?
Horse.
And just like that, we found ourselves halfway. Tomorrow, we would turn around. A new route and new places to visit. But that will be another story. For now, we say goodnight and goodbye to the rainforest.